Good afternoon and welcome to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio with your host, Pamela Capallet, a certified financial planner here to help take the bite out of your budget, brunchandbudget.com. I'm your sound provider, Dyalekt, and here's your host, Pamela Capallet.
Thank you, Dyalekt, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Dyalekt, why don't you tell everybody where we are today?
Well, we're back in the U.S., just got back from a big trip, Philippines, Japan, and we are in, the Oakland Coliseum? We snuck into the Oakland Coliseum. We're here at the Oracle. Is it the Oracle Arena or the Oakland Coliseum?
I call it the Oakland Coliseum because fuck advertisements and corporations.
Corporations? I thought it was named after Batgirl, Oracle after the shadow, right? That's what...
I think it's named after not
We
Batgirl.
snuck into the arena. There's a basketball game going on later today, but we snuck in now before all the players get here, and we're here in a giant place for you. You don't know if we're lying.
You don't know if
It's
it's
the
true.
radio.
It's the radio. You can't see us at all.
Mama always said I had the perfect face for radio.
It's true. He does. He has a good one. So
That's not what that means.
I know what that means.
All right.
So today we're actually going to be talking about something that was inspired by a podcast we were listening to on the road. Shout out to Crack, their recent podcast on famous sayings that aren't true. And one of the aha moments that they had was that there are so many sayings both about living for today and planning for tomorrow, like taking risks or being careful. For instance, seize the day and look
Carpe
before you
diem.
leap. Yeah, and look before you leap at the same time.
You can't seize and look, right?
How do you do both, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And really the thing is, when it gets down to it, why do we as human beings hate planning? Even when we do it, even when we like planning, why is it so hard to actually follow through on all of this stuff? Why is it so hard to reach goals even though it's easy to write them down?
Yeah, because I think, when you say, like, why do we hate planning, and then even when we like planning, planning can be satisfying in of itself, but plan, action, like the whole thing, I think all of us have a problem with that.
Yes,
we may
absolutely.
theoretically be into it, but
Yeah.
when it comes down to doing it, we kind of hate the thing.
Yeah. We hate actually following through with stuff. And I feel like part of that is this whole idea of seizing the day, living for today, no regrets, all of that FOMO, YOLO, all those things those are kind of the modern day versions of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and just what are some solutions to that kind of stuff.
FOMO, if you haven't heard, that's fear of missing out.
Yes, fear of missing out, exactly.
I know you say it all the time like it's a common phrase. Like
Just
it is
Google
a rap
it,
song.
y'all. It's in there. It's in the Urban Dictionary. So before we jump in, we're actually going to do a little investment appetizer for you.
All right.
Today we're going to be talking about what is a certificate of deposit. Speaking of delaying gratification, looking before you leap, not seizing the day.
That's a CD.
Yes, it's a CD. So I get asked about CDs all the time, and CDs actually used to make some sense. They used to pay more than savings accounts. And just to back up a little bit, the way a CD works, or a certificate of deposit, is you're actually signing a promissory note with the bank where you are promising to keep the money in the bank for a certain period of time, either between 1 month or up to 5 years. And the bank in exchange is offering to give you a higher interest rate for keeping the money in there. And the interest rate is based on how long you agree to keep it in there. And what that does for the bank, it kind of gives them a guarantee that, I have use of this money for the next year, the next 5 years, for loaning it out to other people, for, making other investments. And so a CD is good for the saver on one side, because you're like, okay, I'm getting a little bit more money than I normally would in my savings account, and I know I'm going to get the money back. There's virtually no risk in a CD. The bank will give you your money back as soon as the CD matures, is what it's called, or when the time period ends. And the bank gets to know, like, hey, I have this money. So it's a win-win on both sides. And in the past, CD rates were actually quite competitive, and they were yielding much higher rates than savings accounts. The problem is that today, not so much.
So it's not as big of a thing anymore. Because I know CDs. Everybody talks about CDs. It's like you got to hold it for a little while, but they're going to give you significantly more money on top because they get to hold your money.
Yeah, exactly. And today, you can get the highest rate that I've seen for a 1-year CD today is at Colorado Savings Bank, and they will pay you 1.3% interest, but you need to have a minimum of $5,000 in there, and your money is tied up for a year. On the flip side, you can open a savings account at Ally Bank or Barclays Bank that pays 1%. The money's completely liquid. There's no minimum amount to invest. There's no minimum amount to actually save or keep in there. And your money isn't tied up for a year.
Well, a year's not too bad. Do they have a better rate for 5 years?
It doesn't say actually if they have a better rate for 5 years. And the reality is there's a little bit of risk with keeping your money in something like a CD for 5 years. And the problem is in 5 years, what happens if interest rates go up? Then your money is tied up. So that's the other side of it is if CD rates are this low, it might not make sense to put in something for 3 years or 5 years because the interest rate environment can change and you actually might be losing out on a better deal later on if interest rates go up.
So that slight bump that you're getting is canceled out anyway. And also,
Potentially canceled out, yes.
And I guess a 0.13% increase.
A 0.3%, not even, yeah, it's a 0.3%, yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, a 0.3%. Yeah, that's really not
It's
that
really
much
not
of a bump.
anything. Like, just to give you an idea, let's do the math right now. For $5,000, so first of all, you have to have $5,000 that you're just okay with not being able to access for a year without penalties. And then 0.3% of $5,000 is $1.50.
After a year.
Yes. So, good times, guys. Yeah. So, in that sense, just keep your money in a savings account for now. CDs, until you start to see the interest rates go much higher than savings accounts, it's probably not going to be as viable of an option. I think the other thing that that has come along is these online savings banks being able to actually match CD rates. And so the online savings banks, when our parents were putting money in CDs, didn't actually exist. But online savings banks have been able to outpace regular banks on interest rate payments because they don't have to keep up branches or hire employees to manage the branches and things like that. So they're able to pass the interest rate savings on to us.
So just like in the music industry, it's kind of a wrap for CDs.
It's kind of exactly. That's a good takeaway. I like it. It's kind of a wrap for CDs.
But how are cassettes doing?
Well,
vinyl. No?
I don't know if there's a bank equivalent for that. I don't know if you saw. You didn't. No one saw my face except for you trying to rack my brain for an equivalent to a cassette tape.
Vinyl banking.
Vinyl banking. 8-track banking. So certificate of deposit, kind of a wrap. If you did have a question about it, now you know. That was your...
Before you're done, is there anything good about CDs still, or should you just get it out your head?
Maybe one day if the interest rates go up and CDs outpace an online savings bank rate, then it might make sense. But in general, there's no real reason to tie your money up, unless I have had some clients who are like, it's just nice to know that I can't touch the money. It is a true forced savings for me. And I was like, okay, well, that's one reason to do it.
Yeah, just open up a savings account and like give a password or something to you. To your banker. Just be like, don't let me in.
Don't let me
do it.
Oh, man, yeah. So that was your investment appetizer. Seize the day, everybody. Don't get a CD.
Right.
So, again, we are talking about the advice that we often get in these famous sayings. You either seize the day or you look before you leap. And how do you reconcile the two, right? There's some merit for living for today and also planning for tomorrow, for taking risks and being careful at the same time. And what do we do? Do we do one? Do we do both? There are some people who are on one extreme and are like, fuck it, I'm just going to seize the day and do whatever I want when I want. And there are some people who are, searching for that perfect opportunity, that extreme, like, I'm going to plan out everything carefully and have analysis paralysis and then not end up doing anything at all.
Well, duh. I mean, the solution is just dream like you're going to live forever, but...
Live like you're gonna die tomorrow.
Is that the one?
Oh yeah, that's it. I was like, wait, how does that go again? There's so many buzzwords in there. Dream like you're going to live forever. That's the solution, is to do both at once, right?
Right.
Yes, and how do you do that, Dialekt?
Well, no, but I mean, we really do have to balance it.
You do, it's true. And I mean, the reason why we're talking about this today is because money is so tied into all of this stuff, right? It's, do I just do this thing that I want to do today, or do I save for these financial goals that I have in the future? Like, if I just did whatever I wanted, would I ever have enough money to have a house, for instance, or be able to quit my job, or be able to travel regularly? There's all these things that people want their lives to look like.
Well, and not just money, but preparation. And that may require working on a project. That may require going to school.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that lead up to money, but are not money themselves. And that goes into so many of the cliches.
Right. That all takes planning.
How much is that bird in the hand worth? How much is it worth in the bush? How much is that plan worth to you? How much is the expense of that plan?
Right.
I mean, a lot of times when you're going to school, you're not working, so you're not making money then, but you're hoping to get the bigger money down the road.
Yeah. And, we're all staring at our student loans right now, right? So.
Yeah, talk about things that, never go away.
So today we're going to talk about a few different aspects of this. There's the idea of not planning at all, so the difference between immediate versus delayed gratification. And we are going to talk about the marshmallow experiment, the famous marshmallow experiment. If you don't know it, it is basically putting a little kid in a room, just Google it or YouTube it, it's so cute. Putting a little kid in the room and telling them if they don't eat the marshmallow now that's in front of them, then 5 minutes later, the doctor or whoever is going to come in and give them 2 marshmallows. And it's really funny to see what kids do and what they end up doing. Do they eat the marshmallow? Do they not eat the marshmallow? Would you eat the marshmallow dialect? Who knows?
Well, I mean, it also depends on. I mean, if I feel like that experiment. I know that we have more research on it, and but on face value, it feels like a kind of a flawed experiment because there are a lot of other variables in terms of people's wants and needs. Because me, I like a marshmallow, but I'm not too much of a sweet tooth. I'd be happy with 1 marshmallow right now. I don't know if I'm gonna want 2 later.
Right.
But I'll be like, oh, I have 1 now. That's cool.
Huh. Yeah.
I don't,
Right. That's you only care about 1, so why wait for 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't eat the second one. So,
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it? Sell it? I'm not going to sell 1 marshmallow.
Maybe to that kid who ate the 1 and actually wanted 2.
Or to the kid who wanted 2, because they probably want more.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. They could stand to have 3, and maybe they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Is this just like a new industry now that you've created, marshmallow selling?
No, because that sounds like too much work.
You're like, it's just a marshmallow.
Yeah, it's a marshmallow, so I'm not going to care. So I'm just saying, at face value, I don't know how big of a thing, how much it really works. But the experiment actually is much more in-depth than that.
Yeah, so we will talk a little bit more about that. And then the idea of planning versus doing. And, there are some people who love creating plans and who love writing down their goals. And why do we love creating plans and writing down our goals, but it's so hard to actually follow through on them? I have goals that I wrote at the beginning of the year, and I look at them now and I'm like, holy crap, I wrote that?
Well, that's the thing that they tell you to do, right? And we've talked about this a lot on the show. Write down your goals, put things in paper and all this stuff. But the action of planning often feels like doing, right?
Yes,
you
it
did
does.
something.
It's like, oh, I did it.
You know what it reminds me of? You know how you're trying to get your day together and you got a bunch of stuff that you need to do, and you go, you know what? Man, the house is dirty. I'm going to clean up the house before I do that. And then you clean up the house and you're like, oh, the house looks great.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to chill and have lunch.
I accomplished something already today. I get to cross something off the list that wasn't even on there.
It's technically, I mean, I guess it's procrastinating and not procrastinating because you're getting a thing done, but it's a distraction from the thing
thing
you had intended to do.
Yes, totally. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this interesting study that Dyalekt actually found that Columbia University did on self-control regret versus indulgence regret.
It's actually a long series of studies. It's a bunch of studies.
This is one part of many, and we're going to focus on the one today about the idea of people having more and longer regret for being virtuous than giving into a vice. So this is a really interesting side of it too, in terms of like, why is it so appealing to seize the day? Maybe biologically or psychologically, we cherish those moments more and we regret not doing them more. And there's a saying for that too, right? It's like, I never regret the things I've done, only the things I haven't done, or maybe something more clever than that.
No, but it's basically that. Yeah.
Yeah.
In general, we regret our inaction. You can think of this in your own past. We regret our inaction, and the more time passes, we regret inaction way more than we regret action. We often will regret action in the moment.
Yes.
Oh man, you woke up with the hangover. I shouldn't have partied so hard. But in the long run, you're
That's
like,
a fond
I remember,
memory.
Well,
yeah.
you remember more the emotion of spending time with your friends, and a lot of the specifics that cause you consternation end up fading away. And that's what this series of, I think we're going to focus on about 5 or 6 studies within this series of studies that happen. And what is the deal with that? Is it evolutionary? Does it come from the hunter-gatherer thing? What's the deal with that?
Yes. And then finally, we are going to be talking about the flip side of people who procrastinate on pleasure. So waiting for the best opportunity and losing out on a good opportunity in the meantime.
Procrastinate on pleasure.
People do it. I've done it where you're just like, oh man, I could get this thing now, but they told me that I could get a better thing if I just waited.
Do you even think about that? When we think about procrastinating, we think about procrastinating on work.
Yeah.
But we'll procrastinate on pleasure.
Yes.
I guess that's part of the marshmallow experiment.
Yes,
too.
extreme delayed gratification.
You're
just like too good at it.
That is the worst extreme sport.
Oh man, so we are going to talk about all of these things right after this song, Dialekt.
Yeah, okay, we're going to go to some homies up in Denver. Ichiban with his second album. And since, we just came back from Japan, I figured we'd get a little Ichiban featuring Main Rock with Go Ham or Go Home. That's not a pork reference. We'll check you in a minute. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio.
And as the sky turned on, so did the clockwork with it. Locked in an awkward posture of foster to the monster within.
Yeah. Reading from the teleprompter, voice fed the monitor. Wanderers being led into the harbor of the harbinger. Eyes bright open with the mind full of bad assumptions. Dwelling in games entertained by the shadow puppets. Hard to believe when you're part of this dark comedy, where your only choices are from column A or column B. Take your time but hurry up, wouldn't want to be late. Gulliver travels nowhere fast like jogging in place. Sometimes it rains when there's still sunshine, and sometimes get tongue-tied at the punchline. Constantly reminded to keep silent and keep by it. Consumer culture raised on a Polydine diet. We riot the street, hoping for a better change. Demonstrating, get your face occupied, pepper spray. Free thinkers being buried in the cemetery. They live role play, obey, shepherd berry. Go ham or go home. Everybody want a slice of the pie. Go ham or go home. Live it up and have the time of your life. Overindulge the American way. You turn it up a couple notches, leave it blaring for days. Since newcomers arrive, we knew the fairest don't play. Embarrassed to say the truth, we all share DNA. Machine operators, assembly line capitalists, spit us out in droves and get swallowed whole. This madness is sick, stuck suckling. What's with men acting like pigs? Listen for their gritos, they like chorizo, that has to be it. Swine flu, idiot boxes, hypnotizing couch potato elephants. So of course they dismiss the sightings as nothing more than matrix glitches. Reality shows the fakest bitches, but stranger than fiction. How it overtakes our interest. Economic disaster, ignored, not avoided. Marshals enact Murphy's Law and ask how we destroyed it. Easily exploited, spinning out of control. Hard as a motherfucker to see how we're drowning our souls. Go ham or go home. Everybody want a slice of the pie. Go ham or go home. Live it up and have the time of your life. Go ham or go home. Everybody want a slice of the pie. So go ham or go home. Live it up and have the time of your life. Falling, 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 falling down. A slice of the pie. Go ham or go home. Live it up and have the time of your life. Go ham or go home. Everybody want a slice of the pie. So go ham or go home. Live it up and have the time of your life.
And we're back. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was Ichiban out of Denver, CO, featuring Main Rock with Go Ham or Go Home. And here we are talking about season days, leaping, looking.
Yes. Tell us where
lizards.
we are, Dialect.
Where we are? Oh yeah, we're here in the O2 Arena, hiding from security, hoping they don't turn the lights on. Got our little portable sound system. Can you hear the echo? You can't hear the echo.
No, he's done a good job editing.
That's what it is.
So we are here again talking about seizing the day or looking before you leap. What's better? Should we do one? Should we do the other? Do we have to do both? Is there a balance?
You can't do both. You can't be looking while you're leaping
and seizing the day. Oh, yes.
That's too many things at once.
How do you look and leap at the same time? Maybe that's the question we need to answer today.
Man, you need another set of eyes.
Well, that's what you're here for, right?
Right. So, if you're gonna not look before you leap, you need a spotter. All right, that's the show. Bye, y'all.
Done. The end. Now let's go watch the game. No. So
It's an hour. It's not yet.
one of the things that we talked about right before the song was this idea, and I never thought about this so much before, but I feel like it's true, and they actually did scientific studies on the idea of regretting having self-control in a situation versus regretting, indulging in something, which I feel like is what we more think of as often like, oh man, I totally regretted drinking that too much that night, or I totally regretted going on a shopping spree, or eating too much food, or whatever it is. That's what we think about when we think about feeling bad about something. And what they found in this study that was so interesting in various different trials was that people actually in the long term regret self-control or exercising self-control in a situation in the long term more than they regret indulging in something. And the indulgence in something becomes a positive memory, whereas the ability to exercise self-control either becomes something they don't actually think about or becomes a negative memory.
Quick, somebody tell me, what was the grade you got on your second semester math test?
Which year?
Fourth grade. Exactly. You don't care.
No, I remember.
Tell me. Yeah, you don't know.
I got 103.
You got 103. You're guessing.
I did.
You're guessing.
I did. No, you know how I know?
Because you only got 103?
No, I know because my teacher gave me a reward for it.
Oh, you see, that's what you remember is rewards.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, what I'm saying is, for the most part, we don't remember our grades. We don't.
Yeah,
remember.
you don't remember choosing to work versus going on vacation.
You know what I don't remember? I mean, I know that I did it, but I don't remember studying. I don't have I don't have a significant memory like I can picture in my head like a movie version of me looking at paper while there's books around me and stuff. But I don't remember those actions.
Yeah,
those things don't.
That
stick
all
in my
blends
head.
together. There isn't any specific visual that I have in my head of that.
And that's basically what these studies found is that the things. I mean, all memories turn into pure emotion after a while.
Right.
And the
Thank
things
you,
that,
Inside Out, for teaching us that.
Right. The things that we really remember are the things that, what they say are hedonistic. These the things that feed our souls rather than the things that literally feed us.
Mm-hmm.
Our work, our study, those are things we may appreciate the benefits from, but we don't actually have good memories of them,
doing them.
Specifically. And, well, that sounds fine. The issue that is created is when we get too fixated on our work and our study and these things. In the study, they call them righteous. We have excessive farsightedness. They call it hyperopia. And not only does it lead to regret, but going through this series of studies, it actually leads you to be more susceptible to advertising and buying stuff that you don't necessarily need.
So if you don't have any kind of release from the, like day-to-day of life on a regular basis, then you end up overindulging and being more vulnerable to someone saying, here, do this.
Exactly. Yielding to temptation, it generates regret in the short term. But your righteous choices of virtue and necessity, they lead to much stronger regret in the long run. And one of the studies, they talked about alumni reflecting on their college winter breaks from 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
These are people from, I guess that's the 70s now. And for the most part, these people regretted not going out and partying over winter break, not spending time with their friends. In fact, they very much will miss the actions that they had with their friends more than the things about studying. And as time went on, these feelings intensified of caring more about spending about time with their friends. Blah, blah, blah. I said that all weirdly. Caring more about spending time with their
it's the
friends.
Stadium.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That was the echo you heard. Rather than caring so much about the things that they did, the things that they didn't do.
Totally makes sense anecdotally.
Well, the funny thing is that there's a weird cross-section because in general, these studies show that people regret inaction more than they regret action. But regardless of whether it was action or inaction, people still regret more missing out on the things that feed their souls, the things that they're spending time with friends, the things that are important to them on an intrinsic level more so than the practical. So that's why even studying and working, these are active things.
Yeah.
It's not, not doing stuff. They regret doing those things more because they didn't feed their hedonistic parts of their body.
Right. They regret doing it because it was more like a function thing than an actual memory building thing, and it didn't feed any of their emotions.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, it was functional.
Yeah.
And functional is very worker bee. It's very, even
like,
though...
is this all my life is?
Well, the thing of it is, even though it seems intellectual because you're doing word stuff, you're doing study stuff, you're doing effort and learning-based stuff, it's kind of mindless.
Yeah.
And it's not what creates who you are.
Right. You work so that you can do all of these other things. And when you end up choosing work over doing the opportunity to have this other thing, then you're like, why did I do that? I barely remember what I did at work. I barely remember all of these things. And I feel like it's so humanly intuitive to the point that there are so many movies about it, right? There's always the workaholic who's never around with his family. Even freaking Jim Carrey in Liar Liar. That was the whole premise of that movie, right? It's like, you work too much. You never see your son. You don't enjoy time with your family. All of these movies.
What's annoying about the movies is that it's always someone who's been financially successful who ends up regretting these things.
Right.
And throughout these studies we've seen, and throughout our lives we've seen, it doesn't matter whether or not you became a rich person doing all this work. You're still going to have these types of regret. And, oh, well, if it happens to rich people, it happens to poor people, why does it matter? Well, it matters financially.
Yeah.
Because, right, this is Brunch and Budget. We're not just, this is not like brain and brunch and brain.
Brunch and Brain. That's like the Halloween edition, Brunch and Brains.
Oh, right, the zombies, right? I get it. But this isn't about your psychology. It's about how the psychology affects your financial decisions. And this is the deal. Not only will you feel regret, but the regret you feel will influence your purchases more so in the long run. And they did a study on people on Black Friday. And people who had spent more time focused on their necessities, focused on their virtues, were the people who are more likely to go wild on Black Friday. And not only were they more likely to spend money, but they were more likely to spend money on things that were advertised to them.
Oh, wow.
And not only the things that were advertised, they were more likely to spend on more expensive name brands. The way that they conducted the research is they did a control of people that they didn't remind people about their past inaction or about the things that they could possibly regret. And those people acted pretty normally and, didn't buy too much stuff. But when prompted with a memory of the things that they missed out on, they were much more likely to do so. They were much more likely to spend money.
Wow.
And who do you know that likes to prompt people about the time they missed out on having fun? Anybody? You, Bueller?
Is the answer advertising?
Advertising, yes. I mean, that's all advertising is, right?
That's all it comes down to is like, you're going to miss out on this, or you have missed out on this in the past. Don't miss out again.
Yeah.
That's basically all advertising is you're not doing something that everybody else is doing right now. You don't have the thing that everybody else has.
And the really insidious thing about the Black Friday study and a number of the other studies, because they tried it about, it works more, or it's more effective after time has passed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just watch, because I know a lot of people are like, man, commercials don't affect me that much. And in the short run, they don't really. When you see something talking about, oh, you missed out on something, and then you go into a store right after it, it's not sitting in your head like that. But after a good amount of time, it builds on you and becomes worse and worse. Your fear of missing out combined with your regret of actually feeling like you have missed out leads you to be more inclined to purchase expensive things from these trusted name brands who you trust because they reminded you about all the things that you missed out on.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So all this advertising is all truly subliminal and feeding on something that is very much human nature, you know? And the examples that I've seen that lend to this, not necessarily being a learned thing, but very much an intrinsic thing, is there's so many people in these comments and these forums that we've read about this on who are like, yeah, I totally, my sister died in a car crash 4 years ago, and ever since then, I have completely changed how I live. I completely changed my perspective on life. I just, seize the day now. And they actually use that phrase. And it's just this idea of, like, having this finite amount of time, and how do we take advantage of it? How do we make the most of it in a lot of ways?
Well, when you're reminded of it, when you're given a reason. Yeah,
exactly. And so I feel like advertisers are definitely preying on that, but that is definitely something that is a human condition. And how do you balance the fact that, hey, we're planning to live a long time, but you never know what's going to happen tomorrow?
And this is also an evolutionary thing, because our old school hunter-gatherer mentality had us not really delaying any gratification because it didn't make any sense. That meat was going to go bad.
Yeah.
Those berries you got were going to go bad.
You could just get eaten by a tiger. Well, and the idea
not even being eaten by a tiger. The
your
things
food
that you
supply.
had, they were all temporary, and you didn't have ways of storing them. When we became more agrarian society and agriculture became more of a thing, and we were able to plant and get these things in the long term, that's when we started changing our mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these conflicting ideals come from our evolutionary past having both of these.
Right.
And different populations having different amounts of that in their past.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just like thinking about food and how much of an abundance there is really of food nowadays, and still having that instinct to just like eat whatever's in front of you, because who knows? Who knows if it's going to go bad, even though we know that it's not.
Yeah, man, all of that, that reminds me also talk about advertising is the artificial scarcity.
Oh, yes.
Scarcity is such a sensible thing in capitalism when it exists in reality.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's not a real thing and you have to create it, the whole thing is so glitchy.
Yeah, like
It's
diamonds,
like,
man.
Well, I was talking with a friend the other day about I used to love baseball cards and all those types of things back in the day. It was all cool. You get, the rare card here or there. And now they have Star Wars made this app that has cards. And they're not real cards. They're just JPEGs.
Yeah, they're pictures.
But they have
pictures of cards.
Really? I mean, I know the baseball cards were artificial scarcity too because
Yeah,
they just
yeah.
printed them up. But they were a physical thing in your hand. And these JPEGs have some that are more rare than others, and they're worth more to people, and people are trading real money for it.
This stuff.
But it's still, it breaks your brain because you know that the JPEG is just a JPEG, and I could just take
It's
a
not a
screenshot
thing.
of the thing from the movie and put some text under it. and
Yeah,
it's a day.
totally. Well, and the other thing is, I just mentioned diamonds, is Tiffany's, their stock has gone down because their profits have been down 7% in the last year. Because, De Beers created, and we've talked about this on other shows before, but De Beers created that false scarcity of diamonds, which created a high demand, and also the level of advertising they did to engender this scarcity and this whole, like, keep it in your family forever and all of that kind of stuff. That's going away a lot more. People are valuing stuff less than they are valuing experiences. And so that false scarcity, it can only last for so long because it really is subject to how people actually feel about the thing in the moment.
Well, and the thing about it being false scarcity is once people realize that it's not actually scarce, I want to let everybody know despite our ability to break into sports arenas, we are not investigative journalists. Most of the stuff that we get is from, simple internet searches. And if it's that easy for us to tell you about De Beers, then that means that a lot of people know about De Beers.
Yep.
And that means that the scarcity they've created is now over.
Yes, it is being debunked every day.
So I figure that has a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to things like, immediate versus delayed gratification and the idea of planning versus not planning, I want to talk about the marshmallow experiment again. And if you don't know what it is and you didn't listen to the first part of the show, these kids were put in a room and said, hey, if you don't eat this marshmallow right now, we're going to give you 2 marshmallows in 5 minutes. And so the kids had to just sit there and look at the marshmallow. And whether or not they like the marshmallow, the videos are funny. It's just these agonizing videos of these kids just like trying so hard not to eat them. Some kids eat them right away. Some kids eat them like 4 minutes in.
I like that one kid who cut a hole in his marshmallow and hollowed it out and
It was
ate all of
actually
the
a
inside.
girl.
Oh, excuse me. My bad for putting my own gender on something I thought was clever. It's just what I did there. You do it too. You listening, not Pam. Pam doesn't do it. No, she probably does. Anyway,
Probably do.
She was a really brilliant kid. She decided she was gonna suck out the inside of the
Keep
marshmallow
the shell.
and keep the shell. So
She got 3 marshmallows that day. But one thing that the marshmallow experiment doesn't often talk about, but I just read about, James Clear has an article on delayed gratification, and there's this precursor to the actual marshmallow part of the experiment, and it was a difference between having reliable versus unreliable experiences, and it kind of taught kids what to trust and not trust in this experiment. So the precursor was, there would be 2 groups of kids. One group of kids would be told, hey, you have this small box of crayons now, but we're going to bring you a bigger box of crayons later. And the other group of kids were told the same thing. And one group basically never got their bigger box of crayons, and the other group did. And they did the same thing with stickers, where they're like, oh, there's only a few stickers now, but we're going to bring you more later. One group didn't get more stickers. The other group did get more stickers. And so in that vein, when they actually told one set of kids, hey, we're going to give you 2 marshmallows later, one set of kids said, nah, you guys lied to us twice already. I'm going to eat this marshmallow now. And another set of kids were like, okay, I'm going to wait a little bit, because they followed through on all of their other promises that they made.
And I know some of you have dealt with that in life, and I know my educators can definitely see that difference in their students. Kids who've been promised things and it hasn't been followed up on, they haven't gotten it. We talked a lot about in life about how much it's important to make sure that you make good on the promises you make to kids.
Yeah, totally.
Because that will influence all their decisions.
Yeah, so this goes much deeper than just whether or not you want the marshmallow. It goes into, how do you see the world now based on these past experiences that you've had, based on whether or not you've been disappointed over and over, based on whether or not you feel like you failed over and over. Is that will color whether or not you feel like that you can succeed in the future, or that you will get what you've been promised in the future.
And this also deals with evolutionarily with your hunter-gatherer versus agrarian societies. If you, not only in your personal past, but in the past of the people you came from, have a history of not getting that second marshmallow, then you're going to go for the first.
You're going to go for the first. I mean, that's why generational poverty is a real thing.
Exactly.
Right? That's a whole other show, but that's where a lot of it stems from. And I feel like that's partly why also there are people who are just like, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to I'm just going to take what I have now.
Well, and to bring it back to, the initial topic, that is why it's often very difficult for people who come from poorer backgrounds to plan for the future.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing better now, you've got yourself a solid job, everything is all taken care of, and you feel like there's that weird brain block.
Right. Of why can't I save this money? Why do I feel like I need to spend it all now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's not lining up, even if you're doing all the plan perfectly, and you feel that thing in your chest. I'm not saying this not from a place of experience.
Right.
I very much will find myself in good positions and not know how to move forward.
Right. There's this fear that it could just all be taken away tomorrow.
Not a fear, an expectation. It's I think that fear often drives us to action, and anticipation of inevitability often keeps us in our place. And that's the
Ooh.
thing. Well, when you're talking about these kids who are like, they didn't get the crayons and all that,
Yeah.
they're not afraid of not getting the crayons. They're
Right.
like, oh, I'm not getting the crayons. I'm not even sweating it.
Right. I know I'm not. I'm just going to use these crayons.
Has anybody
I'm
been
just
like
going to
that?
eat this marshmallow.
I know I've been like that, where it's like, oh, yeah, that second thing's just not going to come. I
Yeah.
shouldn't even think about that. That's it.
Mm.
I'll be like, you're stupid for even telling me that there's another set of crayons coming, because I know.
There's not.
Not be naive about it.
Yeah. And is that the root of where Seize the Day comes from, too? I feel like that is a little... I feel like Seize the Day is much more like, oh, live your life to the fullest. And this is more like, yeah, I'm just going to take what I have. I'm just going to make do with what I got now.
Well, isn't that 6 of one and half a dozen of the other?
I guess on the one hand, it is very much like the half glass full versus half glass empty perspective of the same thing.
Because if you think that you're only going to get but so much, then living your life to the fullest means accepting that little bit you got.
Right.
When you read those articles about poor people's budgeting, and you see all the comments about, well, why don't they just do this and sacrifice this and instead of doing that? Because then in the future... if you have a history of none of that ever working out,
What would make you ever think that it was going to be different?
why would it be worth it?
Right.
If you only have $10 after your paycheck and you want to spend it on that thing that you get your nails done, you go to whatever little small thing you can afford with that people are saying, sacrifice that for a few years and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Why would you ever sacrifice that one thing you're getting?
Right. And then we have people who I feel like on the other end will spend all of their time planning and not actually following through with any of it. So you'll have the people who are like, I'm just going to take what I can get and live day to day. And then there are people who, just going back to that quote that you had, dream as if you're going to live forever. There's a lot of people who, and I fall into this category sometimes as well, who make a lot of plans and don't actually follow through with any of them, because the making the plan part is fun, and the actual execution of it is where it actually gets hard and where you actually have to deal with failure. So the whole thing about this that's so interesting is a lot of people like to plan because they think about their future self, and they put themselves in the place of their future self and say, okay, one day I'm going to have all of this stuff, so let me plan to get there. And then when they actually have to make a decision, it's actually you dealing with your present self and saying, okay, now I have to actually make the moves to get there. And that's usually where the roadblock is for people.
Most definitely.
So that's another roadblock that a lot of people have in terms of like seizing the day or looking before you leap. There are people who are like, well, I'm going to look before I leap so I can seize the day one day. And instead they fall into this trap of constantly planning and not actually doing anything.
Well, that's part of the difficulty, is that we're planning for these days that we're hoping are going to come, but not ever having the day that's going to come.
Yes, totally. So, I guess the real question is, what's the solution to all of this? We just talked about, hey, this is just human nature. This happens, and sometimes life circumstances lead you to feel this way or act this way. So what can we do to change that?
Nothing.
Huh? Nothing.
Cry
Aw.
about it.
Cry about it. Well, let's cry about it through this song, and then Dyalekt and I will give you some starting solutions to getting out of this mindset.
Yeah, we're going to fix everything. We're not going to fix everything. Listen to some music. This is The New Black Theory by Kemba. That's more Bond family. You may know him as YC the Cynic, but now he's known as Kemba. We'll check in a minute. Bunch and Budget. Bonfire Radio.
I can walk outside now and get shot down. If you ever wonder why I'm hostile, you can see the chief sending orders from the top down. All the civil leaders looking docile. Lord forgive them. Maybe it's the dark forces in them, or the Medicaid cost just hit them, or the evidence that all our history is getting washed out. But everybody taking our style. Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brother love.
Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brother love.
Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brother
the new black now.
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brothers love.
Nah, most feared and most imitated. Granddaughter love it, granddaddy hate it. Brands pay top dollar to legally take it. They strip it naked, we recreate it. Bitch, this is basic, this came from love. We made a civilization from mud. We made a culture to break out the hood. All niggas gave us was pistols and drugs. Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brothers love.
Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brothers love.
Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brothers love.
Who the new black now?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brothers love.
College professor get locked up, student get locked up. What is the difference? What am I missing? We all get looked at as monsters. The guilty and innocent end up in prison. Why are we divided? Why are we divided? I can't see the light. Why are we divided?
And even though they sold drugs, they show the young brothers love.
And we're back. Brunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. That was Kemba with the new Black Theory.
Nice. So we just spent most of the hour talking about how we are very bad at planning and we always give in to immediate gratification and advertisers are out to get us and prey upon our vulnerability.
Ooh, and how we're also really good at planning, but planning can be a distraction from actually doing.
Yeah. So we're good at planning and terrible at doing.
Well, and sometimes we're planning and we're doing the thing that sets us up for the thing that we want, but the thing that we want is an imaginary day away, so we never get to the thing we want. In the same studies that we were going over, they were talking about people who are given gift cards. This is very similar to the marshmallow theory. People who are given gift cards with an expiration date of a short time away.
2 weeks out or 8 weeks out.
Yeah, or 8 weeks out. And the ones that were, I mean, that's not even that much of a difference.
No.
But the ones that were 8 weeks out were more likely to have been forgotten about.
Yes.
Because people will wait so long.
Waiting for the perfect time to use the gift card instead of just using it at all, period.
And there were also things about lottery winnings where if you waited for the right date, you could possibly get a higher amount.
Right.
But you also ran the risk of losing it altogether. And the people who are more willing to wait for the later date, the higher amount, the perfect thing, they statistically were the ones who lost out or ended up with smaller amounts.
Yeah. So why do we wait for that perfect moment also? What are we exactly looking for? And what is that goal that we're after in a lot of ways, you know? So we talked a lot about, okay, so there's all these things that are up against us in terms of human nature. So what can we do? And we spend a lot of time on the show talking about goals. And there was one really amazing piece that we read, again by James Clear, called Goals versus Systems. Mm-hmm. And this was really eye-opening in the fact that he was like, don't set goals. Goals will set you up for failure. Why don't you instead consider setting up a system? And we're not saying it's a bad thing necessarily to have goals, but if you instead or as well set up a system for the things that you actually want to achieve, then when you do that system, there is no way to actually fail. Like when you don't accomplish a goal, then you feel like a failure. You failed. You didn't accomplish the goal. Or if you do accomplish a goal on the flip side, you're like, okay, that's great. I'm done. Right?
Yeah, because a goal is like a yes or no thing, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 2 years ago, I went through this test group a fitness test group, and it was 10 weeks long, and I had this goal to get through the 10 weeks and lose X amount of weight and lose X amount of inches, and so I was super focused on that goal. And then when it was finished and I had that first bite of pizza after, I was like, oh, now I have to just live the rest of my life. or, having a goal to like run a half marathon or run a marathon. You train super hard for X number of months, and then you finish running it, and you're either like, okay, what's the next thing, or you just stop running altogether.
Yeah, that's why these goal-oriented things don't necessarily become habits.
Yes, exactly.
That's something you see in fitness, and that's something that you see in budgeting as well. When
Yeah.
you budget for something, like it's a lot easier for cats to budget for a specific thing, get
Right.
it, and then be done, and not know how to budget for the next thing. How many of you people who work in nonprofit world or the grant-getting world, you create budgets for things, but then when it's the time to ask for the next one, you're just as clueless as you were last time.
Right, and
I
you
know I
have
am.
you have just the same amount of money as you did before you got that grant, right?
Right.
That's
It's
why
not a
you're
thing
asking for
able
the
to
next
build on.
one. It's not sustainable. And I think the difference between a goal and a system is a goal has all of these emotions that are tied to it that we were just talking about, right? It's this idea of disappointment and failure, and I'm not going to be able to get the thing I want anyway, so let me just do this thing now. Like having a goal to save a certain amount of money by a certain date. If you don't hit it, a lot of people will just say, screw it, I'm just going to spend the money on whatever I want now.
Right, rather than recognize that you have accomplished a thing.
Yes, exactly. And so instead, by having a system of I'm going to automatically save X amount of money, or I am going to, plan to eat these meals at these times every day, or whatever it is, the system takes out the emotion that we know we're going to have about these things and these things that we want to achieve, and instead puts you in a place where you're just doing the thing. And this kind of goes back to the idea of like working and studying and going to school feeling like a routine. Is you need to create routines so that you have wiggle room to actually seize the day and do the things that you actually want to do, so that you have wiggle room to actually, go out on a shopping spree once in a while, so that you have the wiggle room to actually plan a trip somewhere and not really have to budget for it.
Well, what was that one thing you were looking at where it was talking about if you have a goal of doing 30 reps a day, it's like a fitness thing, 30 reps of whatever, your push-ups, and you only hit 28 and you have a goal of 30, well, then you feel like you failed.
Right.
But if you have a system where you do 30 reps a day, you're like, well, that's all right, I'll just do my reps tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll just do 32 tomorrow or 30 tomorrow, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, it was the James Clear example that he gave was he has a system of when he works out and how he works out every single day, and one of the days he was feeling a twinge of pain in his shoulder, and he wasn't quite finished with his workout. And if he stuck to his goal of finishing his workout, he would have finished it and potentially injured himself. But because he knew he was going to jump back into the gym tomorrow, he just stopped and said, hey, I'm going to take care of my body right now because tomorrow I'm going to get right back in it.
One way we idealize these goals, we were talking about movie stuff earlier, is in montages.
Yes.
Because isn't that always the thing? They've got some goal they want to get, and then they go back and music plays, and you see them do a couple of things for like 5 minutes, and then they're there.
They're there. They've achieved it. They've made it, and they make it seem so easy. And there's that emotional swell where you're with them, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're accomplishing this thing. How amazing. I want to feel that way, And I think that by transferring your goals into a system or a process and taking out that emotion, you will look up one day and you will find that you have accomplished something. And the thing about a system and a process that's so interesting is it gives you the flexibility so that I feel like with a goal, you can't change it.
Yeah,
There's this
goals are super
idea in your
rigid.
head that it's fixed and it's rigid. And with a system and with a process, you're able to be flexible and make changes as they come. And one day you might come out the other end of it and realize, hey, this is actually what I wanted to accomplish. And because I didn't have this set idea in my head of how many reps I needed to do or how much money I needed to have, I have this other thing instead that's actually the culmination of me reflecting on it on a daily basis.
I mean, because as it is, our benchmarks are going to change over time.
Yeah, straight up. That's
By
just
necessity.
the reality of it. I mean, that's also why the idea of seize the day is so appealing, because every day you don't know what's going to come at you. And so if you set up systems in place that can really get you to the point where you're okay with things being thrown at you and okay with being able to take advantage of opportunities as they come and deal with emergencies as they come, then instead of just like being stuck in this loop of planning and not doing and planning and not doing, you're able to actually seize the day and look before you leap at the same time.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Be your own spotter.
Be your own spotter. I love it. Oh man, I think the players are coming in, Dialect.
Oh yeah. We got to get in. They're we got to get out of here. Players are going to be coming in here in a minute. Security's going to come and drag us out of here, and we do want to finish you off with our last song of the day.
All right.
I'm going to go to my homie and your homie, Rada Blank, amazing writer, playwright, screenwriters, currently writing for Empire, does lots of other good things. But she's also an MC, and she's got a song called Hotepin under her name Rodimus Prime, because she's a Transformers fan, like I guess you ought to be. Not the Michael Bay. I don't think they have Rodimus Prime in the Michael Bay ones. The Matrix, Touch, Stan Bush, all that good stuff. Anyway, Rodimus Prime, Hotepin, and we're going to check you next week. Bunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. Don't have a goal. Get in the system. I'll leave you off with a quote by Muhammad Ali, rest in power. Don't count the days. Make the days count. Count along with you. Check you next week. Bunch and Budget, Bonfire Radio. Peace.
Yo, for all my blackity black pontificating, mung bean soup eating, frankincense smelling, green juice cleanse breath having hoteps. This one's for you. Went online today. Guess what I seen? Another nigga talking about stay on your dean, giving advice on how to wash my ass, how to shit right, stay on the Nubian path. War kufis of fabric can taste smell like patchouli. Had mad things to say about how to be a queen, how to be pristine. Said tea tree oils keep my vagina clean. Had many thoughts of flooding, of verbiage. Down with the meat, up with the foliage. Said white man's the devil and black man God, but this nigga Hotep ain't had no damn job. Spent all day barking into his laptop making bland vegan food as he flips his dreadlocks, quoting boys, Umar, and mad black academics having Facebook fights with other prophetics, flapping his gums between flipping tabs, bust off from Pornhub, then back to his task of saving black folks one post at a time. Before a black horse, he ain't spent a dime. Why? His dough tied up, absorbed. 5 G's behind in child support, owes back taxes, but he maxing. On FB trying to kick black facts and educate the youth, but fuck fact checking the truth, cause that's just how them hoteps do. Educating the youth, but fuck fact checking the truth, cause that's just how them hoteps do. Because
Hoteps, hoteppin',
hoteps be hoteppin'.
hoteps, hoteppin',
Them hoteps be hoteppin'.
hoteps, hoteppin', tappin',
Hoteps, hoteppin', tappin'.
hoteps,
Ayo,
hoteppin',
them hoteps be hoteppin'. Ayo, Khalik, Ibrahim, Rohim, Jamal, Farouk Allah, Hotep, do me a favor, step out of your shea butter bath the oils for 1 second and mind your fucking business. Yo, calling yourself a Hotep, but you ain't even been to the library and shit. And why you always put too much cayenne in the fucking tofu? Damn. Burning the brown rice. Like, how about you learn how to boil rice first? Then you expose me to your amazingly bland vegan dishes. Damn, these hoteps be hoteppin'. These hoteps, hotep. Yo, no, I don't want to pierce my nose. No, I don't want to drink that aloe drink and shit. Yeah, you Asiatic, but you ain't never been to Asia. Matter of fact, your ass ain't never been to fucking Africa. I don't even think your ass been to Brooklyn. Talking about you, African and shit. Don't even know what African is, bruh. Ain't spent a dime on the courses. You spending money on Pornhub, though.